Welcome back and happy Friday, July 16th, 2021. Open Lines Friday. Anything you want to talk about, we are here for you. 602-508-0960. Anything you want to ask about me, about views, about politics, you name it. Just not medical or legal advice. Can't do that. Or counting, because I'm not good at it. The increasing detachment from norms we used to rely on as Americans, specifically even we as conservatives, are not norms we can rely on anymore. I was engaging a conversation the other day with a guest when one of my smarter listeners, Steve, wrote me to say, remember your Madison. We rely on auxiliaries and auxiliary precautions, other institutions that will protect our rights. Those institutions can be the courts, they can be the schools, they can be any number of civic organizations, governmental or non-governmental. And that is quite true. We used to be able to rely on the courts. We used to be able, and we would say this to ourselves all the time, wouldn't we? We could go to sleep soundly at night, sleeping the peace of the just, knowing that those in control of the levers of power, constitutional government, constitutional interpretation, have, the authorities they need and our best interests in mind. The first remains true, the second no longer true. And that's where conservatives particularly need to wake up, where we could once rely on the common sense of the institutions that were born of standard and classical democratic, small d, education. You now have generation and a half to 2 generations of graduates from colleges, grad schools, and law schools who were not taught to appreciate or taught, in fact, the things that their predecessors were about America. You get this particularly when it comes to constitutional interpretation and violations of the Constitution that government entities, agents, personnel take without a pang of conscience or even a question as to whether they can do something or whether they should do something. These are not questions they ask with a view of the Constitution and limited powers, what we used to call constitutionalism in this country. For example, you now have the press secretary to the President of the United States asking private actors, private entities, particularly in journalism and social media, to do the job that the Democrats want them to do, but cannot explicitly do from the government. You have the government asking private actors to do what the government cannot constitutionally do, particularly when it comes to banning speech. Jen Psaki, over the past 48 hours, has said some very alarming things that don't just betray an ignorance of constitutionalism, but betray an ignorance of the moment we're in. Does this administration actually think it's more helpful these days to give more Americans more concerns about their civil liberties? Listen to Jen Psaki. Bill, what do we want to start with? You want to start with her yesterday or start with her today? I don't care. Whatever's easier for you. Let's start with Jen Psaki yesterday.
With these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff, but also members of our COVID-19 team. Given, as Dr. Murthy conveyed, this is a big issue of misinformation, specifically on the pandemic. In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office.
Stop.
We're flagging problematic posts.
The Surgeon General's office is engaged in disinformation tracking.
We're flagging problematic posts
now
in the Surgeon General's office
on social media. But that's actually too clean. It's monitoring individual misinformation as they see it. That's the misinformation. It's not coming from Ankara. It's not coming from Tel Aviv. It's not coming from Riyadh. And it's not coming from anonymous health or, if you want, non-health institutions in America. It's coming from individuals trying to figure out what's going on here with not only a dearth of information, but conflicting information. William, continue.
We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. We're working with doctors.
That's all I need to hear. We are flagging inappropriate or problematic content for Facebook. Do you realize what a low level we have sunk to when the argument used to be, I can't believe Facebook is allowing China to dictate the terms of its operations in China. I can't believe Facebook is helping the Chinese government identify users who are enemies of the regime and hence considered enemies of the people. We have now gotten to the point where the administration is now openly bragging, again, has no compunction about, no pang of conscience about actually giving names and accounts to Facebook for the purpose of censorship. Take me to the second audio cut, please, Bill.
Providing for Facebook or other platforms to measure and publicly share the impact of misinformation on their platform and the audience it's reaching. Also with the public, with all of you, to create robust enforcement strategies that bridge their properties and provide transparency about rules.
Robust enforcement strategies. Give me the next. Is that it? Are we good? We're done? We have one more? Huh? You want me to do it? Take it from the top. Yeah.
Providing for Facebook or other platforms to measure and publicly share the impact of misinformation on their platform and the audience it's reaching. Also with the public, with all of you, to create robust enforcement strategies that bridge their properties and provide transparency about rules. You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others.
Okay, that's what you need to know. They're not just calling for your deplatforming on the flavor of the day Facebook. They're calling on your total deplatforming from all social media. So for those wise guys out there that thought, oh, well, we'll start our own, good luck. The government is gunning for you there. The betrayal of common sense, the betrayal of principles of free speech is incredible to me. Now, I don't know, and I could probably look up Jen Psaki's educational background. Of course, I could look it up. It just doesn't matter to me now, because right now the difference as to whether this is volitional or volial is irrelevant to me. The government is engaged in censorship, and it is asking the private sector to do what it cannot constitutionally do based on the idea of a false opinion. I sometimes wonder a little bit in this new world of quote-unquote vaccine disinformation. I wonder, I'm not on Facebook. Maybe I should tweet this out as an experiment and see, but Facebook is the main one right now. I was sending around an email to some concerned friends of mine when the vaccine first came online in December, January. I was sending it to a few physician friends. I had read in the Wall Street Journal about it. I'd read in the Arizona Republic about it. And it led me to go and look at the FDA to see what it was saying about the vaccines. And here's what I wrote in January, quote, fever and muscle pain. That's to quote the Wall Street Journal, which says these are the side effects of the COVID vaccines. The Arizona Republic says, quote, joint and muscle aches. The FDA, the federal government, the FDA, Federal Drug Administration site says, quote, the most commonly reported side effects, which typically lasted several days. Now, I don't know if several has its own meaning, but you know it's more than 2 or 3. That would be a couple or few. So something that lasts 3 or more days, the most commonly reported side effects, which typically lasted several days, were, quoting FDA, pain at the injection site, tiredness, headache, muscle pain, chills, joint pain, and fever, close quote. Fever, aches, pain for several days is what happens, I thought, if you're under 75 and got COVID. Do you think I could put that out there? Or would that be considered misinformation, quoting the Arizona Republic, Wall Street Journal, and the FDA? Or is Jen Psaki now going to go after the Arizona Republican, Wall Street Journal and ask them to take those lines down from their online analysis and talk to the folks over at the FDA and say this is going to lead to more vaccine hesitancy? It's misinformation. Are you like me a little curious as to why the governmental spokespeople are so ardent on pushing this? Is it not a little weird? Is it not a little weird? What, not business, but worth is it to the Biden administration that 330 million Americans get vaccinated when we're already over at half the population and individuals typically make their own health care decisions? Typically. What advantage is it for the government to see to 100% compliance and enforcement on this? It makes me think the more he talks of honor, the quicker we count spoons.